Welcome to Cancer and Peace. We're back with another episode. Peter Scalzo, host, and I am Sean Stewart here to elicit whatever depths of wisdom. Facilitate, yes.
Yeah.
Can you facilitate wisdom out of another person? I don't know. We're going to find out.
If there was wisdom, maybe.
Okay. We're back.
Yeah.
And we've been on a series and just connecting recovery concepts, these principles in recovery with the grief cycle and then the 5 components of that, meshing them together and what that means as a cancer patient, survivor, somebody who's had their life affected by cancer in a big way. And in the middle of that, over the weekend, we were going into a holiday weekend. You had another surprise. And I liked what one of our colleagues here said. It's like, you might be the most over-medicated person that they've met this year for reasons that didn't need to be done. But
Yeah.
You want to share a touch of your journey for the last few days?
Yeah, just July 4th at a fireworks display. Not quite fireworks yet, waiting. Had a fever the night before, but didn't think much of it. And then all of a sudden went into a fever, shivering, vomiting phase. And with my history and who I am, my girlfriend nurse took me immediately to the hospital. And so I ended up spending 4 days there. So it turned out to be a urinary tract infection, which I frequently have had, especially with the stents and the self-cathing that I was doing. And since I have a tube coming out of my kidney, it's a foreign object. It is probable that I would struggle with urinary tract infections. My problem is I keep getting them, and so I'm working with an infectious disease doc with it. So that's all. I spent 4 days in the hospital over the July 4th weekend,
Which you've affectionately named
Hotel Phelps. But I had a private room. I had one daughter, or actually my girlfriend nurse spent one night with me, and then one of my daughters spent the other night with me. And she's interested. She switched her major to nursing, so it was good for her to see the hospital in action, in full gear, at all hours of the night and day.
You were released, and now you're back with us to record Cancer and Peace.
I was released. When was I released? Monday? Yeah, Monday.
From custody.
Yeah, it was my prison time. Minimum security. Yeah.
Yeah. Very good.
Yep. So I'm back.
Well, let's talk about this middle part of the. I call it middle because it's not really middle. It's in between acceptance and denial. Denial and acceptance. I think those are the 2 bookends for this grief. Because when you start out, nothing's happened, nothing's wrong. You're in shock, and you just to acceptance is, yes, I've completely accept that there are consequences here, and then we have layers of that. Some of the way we've talked about this, and I want to reiterate something that we talked about that came from Scalzo, and it was this idea of enlarging our soul through grief and loss. Is that the reason why we're talking about this? Is that there's a belief that when you process grief and loss, it has major impacts on your soul and your ability to experience life in a bigger way.
Yes, and I explored that concept with you because I've been talking about enlarging my soul through grief and loss, not really knowing what I meant.
Yeah. So
you and I explored it. I thought it was good because the soul is that heart, emotions, and will that I like I said, the inner deepest most part of me is part of it. But the times in my journey over the past 20 years where like the crying, I couldn't stop it. It just came out. Or the sadness, I couldn't stop it. It just came out. And it was this concept that the cup is full and I haven't been processing the grief, and it just like leaked out. But the container was full, so I didn't have room for anything else, right? And so the concept here, which I really like, which you talked about, was let's process that grief. Let's go into it, process it, and basically empty empty the cup a little bit, thereby enlarging. I mean, not only does it make more space, but I become a more empathic person, and I gain a new perspective by what I've suffered, and I think that's the enlarging, the soul piece of it. So,
and we're beings made for community.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I've felt strongly is like, if you haven't processed grief and loss for yourself, then you have no room to enter into other people's grief and loss is something that fits in the same concept.
That's good. Yeah.
And so as communal beings, to be able to have community, you actually have to be able to enter into the harder areas of other people's lives too. So I think it's kind of what we're talking about.
Yes.
So today's in the midst of processing, there's this idea that's in the known 5 kind of concepts of grief processing is bargaining. And I'll read this here as a definition. Bargaining is attempting to regain control by making deals with a higher power or God. That's what it says here. Or fate. E.g., if I do this, maybe things will be okay.
Yeah.
And so I think you already know my first question that's going to come your way is, have you ever experienced bargaining when it came to your cancer journey as you think back through this?
Yeah, the first thing I thought about, like with anger, because we did anger last week, anger is something you could express towards the medical community, towards your body, your parents. I mean, hey, I'm just a genetic whatever material from you, so I'm blaming you for my cancer, And then the anger, I can be angry about those things or angry at someone or something. But with bargaining, for me, I like the definition because who am I bargaining with? And I don't know who, it mentioned fate, but to me, when I meet people, even people who are not spiritual, they all of a sudden will say, well, I think that the issue is bargaining with a higher power.
Yeah.
Because you're interacting and trying to like please the gods kind of thing so that what you want will happen, right? And so for me, because I'm a follower of Jesus Christ, bargaining would take the form that I would be negotiating with God, with Jesus.
Right.
And I forgot, I was watching this one movie. It's an older movie, and it's a popular movie. I forget. But anyway, the main actor is like thrown out to the sea, and he can see the shore, and he's swimming back to the shore. And the farther away, he's far away, and he's like, okay, God, I give everything to you. I'm going to live for you. I'm going to become a priest, whatever he was saying. As he got closer to shore, by the time he reached shore, it was like, well, maybe I'll go to church on Sunday, But it was this concept of, I'll give you something so I get something, right? And that is a transactional way of viewing things. But I think for me in my cancer journey, it definitely would have been something like, if you heal me, then I'll speak out for you. I'll do something for you, Lord, if you do this. Or and I think I'm trying to think of, are you anything in your mind about bargaining, like in your life? Have you, because I kind of drawing a blank on other things, but
I want to relate a bit to this, and it is, I want to pull it out of the grief stage for just a second, and even think about it in recovery terms, so that I think it'll help us both in processing this too. Is that we use you put a word in there that I think is perfect, and that is transactional. And so I think what both of us have learned in our recovery journeys is, or we've seen this idea of transactional relationships, and I love this. So I think about marriage, and I love this. It got me really thinking about transactional a lot when I heard Keller talk about all marriages start out transactional, and a good marriage will move to something that's covenantal, that where there's love comes not because you're looking for something in return. So let's even go back and think about basic economics. It's like whenever you do a transaction in economics, there's this idea that both parties feel like they are getting a better deal. In other words, I'll give you $1 for this book. I feel like this book is worth at least $1 or more. That's the reason why I buy it. And for you, you sold something that you hope that it's a good deal for you because maybe you had the ability to get that book for less than $1. And so you're saying, so both parties walk away going satisfied. I have something that's worth more and you have something that's worth more. And so transactional relationships, when you enter into a marriage or something like that, is something similar. It's like, hey, both parties think they're getting a better deal. They join together, and whatever that is that you feel like your partner can provide for you, versus what you have to give up to enter into this relationship is transactional, and it's assumed to be a bargain. And I like to say that as you get into marriage or whatever, you find that as you both get to know each other's character defects and all the flaws, it's like, I'm a horrible deal. This is not there's no bargain here. And it's not because my wife's a horrible person. I don't even mean it that way at all. It's that it doesn't work that way. Right. And it's marriages are deeply relational. And what we find is that it's hard, and that I found inside of myself these deep character defects, but I still continue to try to approach it from a transactional basis. Well, if I just to manage conflict, maybe I'll rather than facing the pain, it's easier to take my wife out to dinner. Of conflict, it's easier to take out to dinner and appease. It's a transactional approach, as opposed to facing, hey, there's conflict here and we actually need to work through that. There's areas of stuckness that happen that sometimes it's a lot easier just to do a transaction, to make a bargain. And so I think let's take it all the way back to the grief cycle. So I think that's what happens is, rather than face reality, it's easier to try to strike a transaction, a bargain, a deal. And so, I find that many times that rather than face pain in relationships or whatever, I look for the easiest way to do that. And so much of the times it's easier to transact than it is to face it, to deal with it, because that's what we're talking about in the grief cycle. And so marriage and kids and all of that, it's there's transactional relationship is maybe the norm. So I think that's what Keller is saying, is the norm to kind of start out and be thinking about, I'm getting and giving. And what we're actually saying here, I think, is that I'm trying to get to where I can love without the expectation of return, that I can love because I value, and not because I get value, because I value. And that's been a big journey to go on, is to learn how to value others. And I read one of the early EHR, Emotionally Healthy Relationships journals, and it was talking about, it was the Jean Vanier talking about going to a government asylum for people who had massive psychiatric issues or whatever, and he said that this might have been the most oppressed group of people on earth, and his hardest thing was to be able to enter into their pain and to learn to love them and see value in them. It was easier to see the difficulties of relationship than it was to see the value and learn how to love them. And so it's because to do that, he actually had to face himself. He had to face the darkness inside of himself. And I kind of tie this together in some way of just thinking about, well, that's the very nature of bargaining and transactional interaction, is that it's a way of us avoiding ourself. And so in grief, I find that if I'm in the bargaining, it means I'm avoiding entering into the pain and recognizing there's pain here and I actually get to feel it. And it's easier to say, hey, I'll buy my way out. I will appease the moment with something. And so, I find that in relationships, that's a key thing. And so Vignette was really putting something together was he entered into a relationship where somebody wasn't able to give something back readily. But in the end, as he valued them as people and connected with them, there was deep value that came back, that he learned how to love in a way that he'd never loved before. He learned how to see value in a way that he never saw value before and understand it. And it was, deeply moving. And so when I think about my own marriage or life, it's like that's what that's what I want to go towards, but I find myself regularly, working from frustration, wanting to see things happen in a certain way or the control, and I'm out of control. I don't have the ability to control it, but so I try to transact to do that as opposed to learning how to love that away. And that's that's like a part of the grieving process or part of the not transacting cycle. Does that resonate at all? Or
yeah, I mean, that's a great description. I was thinking about that point of acceptance, where in the cancer space, the people I've talked to, cancer patients, that's been a place of peace, is to get to, but to have to go through the grieving process first. But I could see how anger is really striking at that acceptance. Like, I'm angry about this.
Yeah.
And I don't want to go there. Bargaining is an interesting one, isn't it, with acceptance? Because it's kind of like, I'm definitely not going to acceptance. We're going to have a transaction here. And in order to get the result that I want, I'm going to, as you said before, give something of value, but I expect this result from you.
There's like a crossover between anger and bargaining. Yeah. There's this point where you feel the initial anger out of a situation, and then I see myself all the times like, well, can this not just be easier?
Right.
So it's an expression of that. But then implied in that is like, well, what would it take to make this easier?
Yes.
And that's the bargain, right? It's it's going from anger. It's like, this is so ridiculous. It's so frustrating. It's so to, can this not just be easier? Like, if I did this, would that, can this be made easier? And it's with something that the bargain is with something or a higher power who has the ability to make it easier.
Yeah.
Right?
So in my case, as a Christian, it might be something like, all right, I'll go to church then every Sunday, or okay, I'll read my scripture every day. That's what I'm going to give you, God. Yeah. So I expect this other result. Yeah. But the interesting thing, the tie-in, help me with this. Why is bargaining part of the grief process?
Well, because you have to move through, just like in the relational stances, that you have to kind of work through the failure, because it's not acceptance, right?
Yeah.
And the grief process is the steps towards acceptance. And so I think there is a question that has to be answered is, can this change? Denial is this has happened. Yeah. Anger is this is really painful and something wrong has happened. Bargaining is the asking the question. I think it's just the way I'm thinking about it is like, can this change? And if it did, what would it take to make it change? It's asking the question. And so it's not unhealthy in the sense of it. I think the way I described it is, it sounds almost completely unhealthy. It is, will you, can you? It's asking the question.
Yeah.
And if so, does it have a cost to it? Is there,
right.
And I think if you never ask the question, I think maybe you have an incomplete, what if you were to skip the question of the bargain is, or can it be taken away? And maybe it's a zero cost transaction. Is that okay? It's like, can you just take this? It's part of bargaining, right? Even I think it's still in the earliest. Can I get the best deal ever free?
Yeah.
Because all of us want something for free. And so it's part of the being willing to ask the question, can this be taken away? Can this be changed? It's definitely
like my effort to do something about this. Like, there might be a little open door here, and I might be able, just with my higher power, to have that door open more. And I'm going to say now, even though we're not going to deal with it in this episode, I could see how I've been angry, I bargained, nothing's changed. I'm going to go into sadness.
Yes, that's going to be next time.
Yeah,
You're
because
right.
it just makes sense that I have tried this other stuff. I mean, even though, again, it's not a lineal, I think you pointed that out, a linear,
No,
yeah, linear kind of a thing. So you bounce back and forth. But I could see how sadness would definitely set in after I've tried some things.
My experience with this is still it's not so much. It could be bouncing back and forth on the same item. I think it's that you process this through layers of maybe for the same item, but it's like layers of processing of why you feel and what you're going to move out of denial of and accept and towards acceptance of. But I also think as you're describing the why, is that there is a getting an answer of yes or no,
right,
to the transaction,
right?
Because until you get a yes or no, how do you get to acceptance?
Right.
Because that's kind of the question you're asking. Like, why is this part of the grief cycle? Is, well, if it can this loss change, and if the answer is no, then and probably most of the time these are unchangeable. Like for death, it's unchangeable, right?
Right.
A few people do we know are raised from the dead. So the answer is no. And and then you move into sadness and depression because you have to experience the loss eventually.
And it's interesting because what bargaining is not, let's just say, right? So I've dealt with a lot of cancer patients where I think they're in a mode of acceptance, right? And then they've reached out to relationships that had been shattered, maybe with a sibling or a child or whoever, to restore or to bring some kind of repair back to that relationship before they pass, kind of thing. Or they, quote, get right with God as part of their, journey through cancer. And I'm just going to remove it. I mean, I think that can be a bargaining chip, but I'm going to, the times I've seen it, it could have been a bargaining chip, but it was more of there was already acceptance, I felt like, and this was more of a, I'm going to do some housekeeping stuff before I pass. And these are really important things to me, and I'm going to take care of those things that are really important.
Well, I think it's interesting that you noted as past acceptance, because I think it's the same way as this description of covenantal marriage. It's, in a lot of the old-fashioned vows, now maybe they've changed now, but was for better, for worse, until death do us part, is this covenant that was being made. And when it is for worse, you learn how to love without receiving something in return that is, or at least something that you thought you valued, at least that you were trying to find value in. And I think very similar to what you're describing is like our relationship with God can change to where we learn how to love without receiving the thing that we're asking for in return, which may be being healed from cancer. It's, hey, I actually am recognizing that there's something here, and I've actually learned how to love in this process, and I want to have a relational love, covenantal type of a love that I'll enter into on the backside of this, but I'm having to leave my conditions behind.
Yeah, I think that's right. Maybe you could follow me around throughout the day. I'll speak and then you explain what I'm saying. That would be helpful with all of my interactions.
I don't like going to the Phelps Hotel, so I'm out.
Yeah, I have to go there next, but it would be helpful. Oh, this is what Peter means. Yeah, no, that's right. That's good clarity to it, to what I was saying. Yeah.
It's an interesting part of, I think I find myself bargaining in areas of my life all the time. So it's, and I think the one thing is that I'm not sure I want to put the label of being wrong. It's like saying, well, is it wrong to be married if all marriages start out transactional? No, I think we mature and we grow in learning how to love. And so it's not hate, it's not anti-love in a sense. It's, no, I mature and learn how to love is what we're talking about. And the moment this was talking a bunch in this definition about control, and you can't love something or somebody that you're controlling. To truly love, you have to release control. It's that concept of I have to release you. And then if you return back, if they return back, then there's real love. And I think that's why it's teaching us how to love too. There's this concept, I think, that where control is anti-love, control. And it fits into how God's designed us in our own journeys here is free will. These concepts we put out there is like, without free will, can we love? And I think the answer is no. And then we get caught in this trap because it's like, well, and there's this paradox of, well, if God, God's all knowing and has the ability, how can we have, free will? And we have to give that to mystery. But for ourselves, we know when we're controlling something that's not a demonstration of love. And that's why I think this bargaining in that sense it's not hate, but it's not love either. It's not learning how to mature in love.
Yeah. And I think of it like this process of, I picture myself, let's say, as a boy, and, I received a terminal cancer diagnosis and back in 2017 and shaking my fist, being really angry, like, this can't be happening. This is terrible. And if I'm a Christ follower, what are you doing? Jesus, you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
And then saying, oh, well, he is God. So, hey, how about if I do this and then you do this?
Yes.
Right. And then I kind of like that whole bargaining process. And then I could see how when that fails, it would be, oh boy, I'm just sad.
Yeah. Well, you asked a question earlier, and I think it's very similar in this. It's like, how do you get to spiritual depth? And I think there's and so the cancer journey can help lead you that way, but the answer probably isn't, I'm going to try to, I'll do more.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not learning how to love more. It's like, well, I may become, and so I find that I've done that a lot of my own journeys. Like, well, I'm going to do more. I'm going to study harder. I'm going to become more knowledgeable in the Bible or in a particular sphere. But what happens is I don't learn to love more. And that's why it's still a form of trying to control my spiritual growth. And it's a relational exercise, not a exercise of bargaining to do more. And so that idea of, I'm going to go to church more, read my Bible more, do all that, it's not going to build towards relational spiritual depth. It could just build into religious exercise, which I think is and there's a difference between those two. And so I think there's a lot of transactional religion happening around us, and this is why this relational concept is so important, and how it fits into the grief cycle in our relationship with God is it doesn't have to be so complex. Just recognizing we're working from a place where we're learning to let go of control. And when we do, we're opening the doors to love, and acceptance is that final part of the cycle. And that's kind of what we're working towards in this.
Yeah, because the anger, bargaining, sadness, depression, these are given as, I guess, potential places where we could grieve, but it sounds like they're pretty universal, that everyone going through grief will experience these things in some form or measure. I never thought of myself as too much of a bargainer, with the Lord, but I think I probably have been more than I realize, especially things like, oh, I'll read my scripture more, I'll pray more, and those things, and which can just become spiritual exercises. And the real issue is, it's about relationship, right? I mean,
the Vignette quote is what really it stuck me pretty hard, because I was just going, yes, I can so easily be in that trap of, why do I avoid other people's pain? And it's, well, I don't value them enough. I don't see them in the beauty of who they are and the level of depth of who they are. Mm-hmm. It speaks more about me than it does about who they are and their viewed disabilities. And so, he writes a lot about the difficulty of going to places where people are shrieking in pain, and why that is such an oppressive environment. And I'm with him. It's like, I don't know that I can spend much time there, and that's about me. It's I don't have the capacity to value their humanity, to love at that level. And so it shows a level of transactional darkness in me. And the transaction is I need somebody who can love me back the way I want them to love me back.
Wow.
In the same kind of return. It's like, well, there's a depth to this that is scary to even look at when I start thinking about it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Wow.
And it's not that we're ever going to be perfectly there. We're not. It's just the revelation of it. It's like, whew, okay, I got a long ways to grow because I'm still pretty transactional.
Yeah, me too. And why do I have a relationship with this person? Why do I love this person? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. It's what I get in return. Well, that's transactional. And it's not that getting something in return makes it, if it's the reason, then it's not love, it's transactional.
That's why perhaps one of the purest, there's probably lots of examples like Mother Teresa type things, but I'm thinking of a mother with her baby. I mean, yes, the baby's bringing her joy. It was part of her, but the baby just needs to be fed and changed and those kinds of things.
Yes.
But the mother has such high value placed on that baby just for who that baby is,
Yes. It's a great example of it.
Yeah.
It's a loving, it's hard to say what the return is because there is something there, but it is, I've heard or read recently this idea of that if a mother is breastfeeding and the infant is deficient in some way for certain minerals, the mother's breast milk will start meeting that need, even at the detriment of the mother's life.
Yes.
Pretty amazing. And so it's a picture of something that I think we're talking about.
And I think it's, like the sacrifice that like a military person would make has that same connotation to me. Like, I'm going to lay down my life for you.
And then the ultimate is Jesus, a high, like infinite value, laying down his life for while we were yet sinners.
Wow.
And while we were shaking our fist at him, we had nothing that we were going to return, but he valued and created value. So pretty crazy concepts.
Deep stuff. Yeah.
The bargaining, there's some depth in bargaining here.
Yeah.
But I don't think we want to get lost. Just recognizing bargaining is the process of releasing control. And as you release control, you move towards acceptance. Mm-hmm. And so as you think about that, I don't think it's wrong to ask the question, yes or no. What if? I think that's good, but I think you also have to accept the answer. And when you accept the answer, you're moving to acceptance. And so if you never ask the question, then you may live your life in the what ifs.
Yeah.
And so it's important to do this. So I don't want to diminish this part of the process.
The question of asking yes or no.
Can this be removed? Is there a reason? Is there a way it can be removed?
Yep.
And this fits in with, as we think about our recovery principles, and we're talking about the control. It's like we're releasing our lives and control to Christ's care and control. It's how it fits in with it, because this part of what we've been trying to do is bridge these two. Is like we talk a lot in recovery about releasing our lives to Christ's care and control, and that's the bargaining process, is learning how to do that. And that's why the two connect so closely.
I think praying for the cup to pass, the cup of suffering to pass, is different than bargaining. And
in one sense, it's part of the bargaining.
Yeah,
Jesus accepted the answer.
Yes, that's it. That's
like
right.
It wasn't that it wasn't. He's like, hey, is there any way?
But it's okay to make that ask. Yeah, because I've done, point. Lord, heal me, heal me, heal me. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yes, and it gets down to, am I poor in spirit enough to accept and just surrender to what God's...
I'm so glad you brought this point. I think that's a brilliant to even think about seeing Jesus, in a sense, go through the bargaining cycle.
Yeah.
Is there any way this cup can pass? And his answer was no. Mm-hmm. And so he moved to acceptance. But I think this is such a good example. The Chosen
has a powerful scene on that. Jesus in the garden has a vision of Abraham with his son Isaac, and Jesus is talking to the Father, and he's like, "You spared Isaac. How about me?"
Very interesting. Yeah,
it was pretty interesting, pretty creative. But I was thinking about that in the context of my journey and thinking, praying for healing, and was I at a point where I was so surrendered that I was ready to accept a no, right?
Yeah. Yeah, you didn't get to healing by striking a bargain with God.
No.
Because you're doing a lot more church, or because you were going to be a great speaker at the events afterwards.
No, I was doing my end of life process, and all of a sudden a treatment worked, and I was as surprised as the doctor.
It was truly a gift.
Yeah.
Well, I think that gets us a pretty good discussion on this and the connection of the dots.
Yeah,
so
good stuff.
Thanks for sharing your life in this
thanks, Sean.
and the conversation. I enjoyed it.
Yep, blessings.
Blessings.